Welcome to the Back to Me podcast, where we help multicultural incoming freshman women and men manage their entire college experience throughout post-graduation to successfully transition into entrepreneurship and corporate workspaces as new hires.
Back to me. Oh, I turned it around. I'm back to me. I finally figured it out. I'm back to me. So when you think you have nothing, back to me. I go back to me. Yeah, I'm back to me.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Yoli Tamu. For Mental Health Awareness Month, we continue our Campus Care Collective series with Dr. Jerell Hill, Dean of Counseling and Guided Pathways at Los Angeles City College. This education leader, author, and international speaker feels privileged to transform student struggles into strength. From full academic scholarship recipient to wounded healer, Dr. Hill shares lived wisdom from his new book, Developing Conscious Gratitude in Schools. He teaches aspiring educators how to shift students from burdens to brilliance and recognize that the wound is the data, not the problem. Find out how to use your struggle as the beginning of progress, while Dr. Hill demonstrates how he loves students into their purpose. Enjoy. Mental Health Awareness Month. Such an important time, very much connected to our mission of just helping students navigate all that anxiety. And wow, I met someone very, very powerful and so much passion in his heart for students. He is the Dean of Counseling and Guided Pathways at Los Angeles City College, Dr. Jerell Hill. How are you, sir?
Good, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yes, thank you for being with us and taking the time. We appreciate you. And so we're closing out our semester, so everything is kind of slowing down a little bit. Are you feeling a little calm? Or are you still kind of moving around, flustered a little bit?
I do feel calm because, again, like I said, I often have to pinch myself that this is my job, so I don't ever really feel the pressure. I feel like it's a privilege for me to be here and do the work. So this is really go time as people are graduating. Like sometimes you ask students at the beginning of their journey, what will you put on your graduation cap? So now we're starting to see that happen as they get close to commencement, wrapping up finals and those kind of things after they come off of spring break. So no, this is a good time for us.
See, that's what kind of dean they need. Somebody who loves what they do. I love it. And then I also noticed in your bio, you talked about struggling, students that go from struggle to success. That was powerful.
Yeah. So I think oftentimes we have to realize that, sometimes without struggle, there's no progress. And we know Frederick Douglass said that and really meant that. I think he kind of elevated what that means. Oftentimes, the wound is not the problem. The wound is the data. So when you take your struggle, that struggle is what's happening on your way to becoming who you're going to be. So it's like I have to be able to grapple with who I am while I'm going through that transformation. So the struggle is acknowledging it. It's not trying to erase it and not trying to wish it away. It's like, okay, this is where I am right now, but this isn't the final outcome. This isn't the end of my story. It's just really the beginning. Because, oftentimes there's scholars like Myron Golden who says disruption always follows intention. Whenever you have a positive intention, it's going to be disruptive along that way. So that's what I really do mean by students that are struggling, but they actually are going to get to success. Because once you understand the struggle, you can actually use that as power. That becomes a part of the transformation because you took that struggle and turned it into a masterpiece.
So embrace your struggle. I love that. Embrace the journey. Fantastic. And so behind you, I noticed, because you told me you have a book coming out, and I believe this is the title behind you, Developing Conscious Gratitude in Schools, yes?
Yeah. So again, thank you for, bringing me on the show. Yeah, the book will come out. Our digital copy will be available April 20th, and the hard copy is available May 11th through Emerald Publishing. So again, this is 27 years of work going into this gratitude. I think with having a book to really outline what people have called, oftentimes people talk about the external factors of racism and challenges and being in poverty or being underserved. That's external. This is something that's a blueprint to work on the internal part, the interior architecture of who you are while you're dealing with that situation. Because sometimes that doesn't go away right away. poverty is not permanent, but it can last for a long time. It can have lingering effects. So this is kind of a blueprint to help you along the way on that journey. And it really looks at the inside work. It's like reporting from the inside, not necessarily the external factors that oftentimes people discuss. So this comes along with it. It's not in competition, it's in collaboration with what's already out there within this space. So I really feel like this is a companion to some of the things that are already happening.
Well, somebody who loves what they do and is grateful for what they do, I'm looking forward to reading this book as well. So now you talk about, the internal. Let's go back. Let's go back into your internal. We love to talk about motivations and why we serve the students in the way that we do. And so what motivated you to pursue leadership in higher ed per se?
I think I grew up watching people in my community be written off by the system that was supposed to serve them. And I felt like education was a place where I could rewrite that script. So I always share with people that I got loved into the life that I have. I had teachers and counselors and people who really just loved me. And in fact, I have a teacher, Gwen McMullins, who actually took me into her home to write a college essay. So often when you think about those stories, you're like, wow, this is what it takes to really get there. And I share that story to say this: my unmet need to go to college was $2. So I got a full scholarship academically to go from Pasadena High School to UC Irvine. And a lot of that was being loved into the life that I have. So that's what really motivated me. It's like, how do I put coins back in that bank of justice for someone who did that without expecting anything in return? So when I know that that's how I got shaped, I'm just doing the work that they left me to do. So essentially, that's what really motivates me, is like every day I get an opportunity to pour back into someone and put some coins back in that bank of justice. So that's what motivates me to take on a leadership role. From where I sit now, I get to help the masses. Now I can help tens of thousands of students, not just as a classroom teacher or, someone being a mentor, but I'm helping the masses. So that's where I really feel like it kind of called me into this work because I got loved into it. So it kind of chose me.
Well, isn't that great that the love came from a teacher? Isn't that powerful?
Yeah,
Miss McMullen, I remember the McMullins family. We talked about them. I
we
grew up
did.
around them. Fantastic. So, we're here in Mental Health Awareness Month. And on one of our calls, you talked about being on a love assignment. And I wanted you to tell us about what you meant, and that you said it was a map way or a pathway to purpose building. So what does that look like when love is on assignment?
I think when it's on an assignment, it means that you show up differently. It's not about fixing students, it's about seeing them for who they are. It's like often what I mean by being on a love assignment is, it goes back to, like I said, I got shaped at Pasadena High School, and I had another teacher, Doug Gould, who passed away to be with our ancestors. He said something to me that I keep with to this very day. And he said, students don't care what you know until they know that you care. Later on, I found out that was Herb Cole's work. He's got a book called out, I Don't Want to Learn From You, because when you respond in an unloving way, students do not want to learn from you. So often what I mean by this love assignment is I have to build a relationship before I get into the rigors of navigating the system. So it's always relationship before rigor. Hey, I got to give you the benefit of your humanity first before we talk about the nuances of navigating the college system. If you're going to go from here to a career, or you're going to go from here at LA City College to transfer to a 4-year university, but let me build that relationship with you first. So that's kind of what I mean when I talk about a love assignment. My staff and my team know, when they hear me talk, it's like, this isn't hard work, this is heart work. So that hard work is refusing to let people's circumstances and the weights that they carry be the final say in their story. And that's what I mean by being on the love assignment.
Fantastic. And in the times that we're living in, this way of helping students is very important, because they have to look many places to find love, particularly outside of their households, right? So do you find that there is a lot of anxiety, or do you find that they're finding a lot of comfort and self-empowerment and self-fulfillment with you and your staff?
I think there's a lot of work around anxiety right now and depression. I mean, when the Surgeon General named the next pandemic as loneliness, we are being faced with some of the challenges. I don't pretend, it's not pretending, it's positioning. What I'm trying to do is to help the students understand what they're faced with. It just kind of reminds me of some work that I kind of have leaned into the logotherapy of Viktor Frankl. And I don't know, a lot of people are familiar with this story. He survived Auschwitz. His parents both got killed. His brother-in-law died. His sister-in-law died, and his pregnant wife died. But he would highlight Frederick Nietzsche in this work, and he would say, a man who has a large enough why to live can bear almost any how. So when you understand, like he's already proved it in the work. In Man's Search for Meaning is a book that he talks about his survival. He's like, I could figure out because I had a large enough why I could survive. So when I talk to students who are faced with anxiety or they're homeless or they're food insecure, these are some of the things that I lean into to help them understand how to grapple with it. Again, not pretending, it's just positioning. These are your circumstances and they can change over time. They're not permanent. But I need to figure out for you to deal with today, right? We're not going to look too far down the road. Let's deal with it and sit with it today because that's your current circumstance. However, there is a way around it. And that's kind of how I see, working with students. The other thing I want to underscore is oftentimes the counseling department is also, it's therapeutic in a sense. It's beyond just doing an ed plan and helping you map out your courses. That real counseling of like, when students come to me, like, how can I get you right? Let's put all the schoolwork to the side. Let's see about you. And I know that they really value that time because I'm listening to them as a person. I'm listening to understand instead of listening to respond because I don't always have the answers. So I'm like, hey, I can go alongside you and try to understand it better. Then I can kind of give you some guidance and some reasoning or rationale behind it.
And, I really liked our call when you talked about how you kind of help students see what's already there inside of them. There's already jewels that just need to come forth. Can you speak to that? Like, what is your conversation like with the student to tap in and let them know they're already special?
Often it just reminds me, again, when you get shaped by certain experiences, I just remember going to Marcus Garvey as a early childhood student. And the first thing we would say is, I am somebody. And when you say that multiple times, it becomes a habit and you start to buy into that identity. And what that taught me was there's three main pillars. And I talk a little bit about this in the book too. When you talk about your identity, your urgency, and your direction. But when I'm somebody, I can already ground my identity. So the urgency and direction become a little bit clear because I know who I am. You were already a genius when you came here. You just can't be talked out of it. And that's scientific. That's not me going off on some tangent. That's a proven fact. You're already a genius. You just can't be talked out of it. The big part of your story is you understanding who you are and what you're put here to do. So you can really be focused on what, in academic spaces, we call it purpose-driven inquiry. What's my purpose? Hey, once I'm on this purpose-driven inquiry, I really start to unpack who I am because everyone has a story to share. And that story inside them will help somebody else have some clues to deal with things that they're going through. There's nothing new under the sun. There's somebody that's probably been through the same things that you're going through. Right. But we just have to be in spaces to receive it and also spaces to share it. So what I do when I work with students, I really do talk to them about my own journey. And it's not to say I made it, you made it. It's to come alongside them. Hey, I do understand what it's like not to have. I do understand what it's like to be in poverty and not to grow up with, all the circumstances, at your feet and and all these privileges. I get it. However, that isn't the end of the story. And let's figure out what we can do to support you. Oftentimes, it's one small little piece of advice. Sometimes it's just a motivational word. And sometimes it's an action. You know what? Let me walk you down to financial aid because let's make sure we got everything in place. It's not just me telling you you're going to be okay. It's me demonstrating it. Hey, I can go alongside you. Hey, let's walk down there together to make sure I'm handing you off to the right person so you're not giving the runaround. Hey, let's look at your paper together and figure out where some of the blind spots are in your writing. It's just you being able to get what's in your brain on paper so that your instructor understands what you're trying to communicate. And that's how I kind of work with those students.
That's everything. That's so important, particularly hearing from a college administrator that you will walk them to the destination.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of giving them a map and say, set up an appointment. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's fantastic that you really invest in that way. So now tell us about your book. Let's get into it. Developing Conscious Gratitude in Schools. And you say it is the blueprint for shifting from burdens to brilliance. Love that. Tell us about this book.
Yeah. So most people are taught to be grateful for what they have. No one teaches us how to use what we've been through in a way to identify that gap. That's where conscious gratitude lives. If you think about the Japanese art form, is called kintsugi. Basically, what they do, any like destroyed piece of work is put back together with gold and silver. So the replica is actually more valuable than the original because they took kind of a mess and made a new masterpiece. And that's where conscious gratitude lives. The blueprint from shifting burdens to brilliance is the same concept of like the burden does create the brilliance. Most people that are successful had to go through something. There's never just been this like perfect cookie cutter lockstep approach to getting to where you are. Like I said, disruption, intention, disruption always follows intention. So when you think about the heart work and conscious gratitude, it's not only being thankful as a feeling, it changes your action. It changes who you are. If you have an instructor take you into their home and you write a college essay, that was a transformative experience for me because I'm a totally different person because of how grateful I've become based on what someone was able to do for me. It's not just a feeling, it's me being changed along the way. I think the other piece of conscious gratitude, it helps you develop the understanding of what the inside of the wound, what's happening while you're going through that hard time. And the other thing I can share with you is kind of building through the hardships. Like, you know what? I'm not going to let this stop me. I understand this is something that's happening to me. You know, I got to figure out how to use this to my advantage. So the next piece of conscious gratitude is grateful storytelling is one of the pieces of the framework. And I'll go a little bit into that. So the grateful storytelling is me to take stories from my own personal experience or interactions with the student, and I can be able to share that in a way that really opens up gratitude. Gratitude does something scientifically to your cortisol levels too, and it does something to the dopamine, like you're getting a rush, and it's really good for your body. Gratitude works with cancer patients, Alzheimer's patients. So it's like, well, why don't we teach people how to do that in schools? I can share a story that I have with one of my former students who was identified in special education. He flies planes and he stopped me. I was going to get my mail one day. Mr. Hill, you really saved my life. I fly planes now and I want to go back and help students like me figure out how to do what I'm doing now. I want to go teach them how to fly planes. I'm, oh, that's why I do this work. Just in that interaction. And that was years later. I had that student probably, 15, 16, maybe 20 years ago. For someone to stop you and to still have that impact, that's conscious gratitude. Now I'm giving people what the blueprint is to being able to develop that with the skills. Like I said, Viktor Frankl and people like that, Ibram X. Kendi, they're naming some of the things and I'm giving you the blueprint to live with it. They're naming how to be an anti-racist, but I'm giving you the blueprint to how to deal with who you are until you get to that point. And that's kind of the essence of the conscious gratitude.
Whoa. So that's powerful. You have to deal with who you are first.
Yeah.
Before you can teach or help.
Oh, absolutely. Right. I mean, the airline industry figured it out, right? They always tell you put on your oxygen mask first before you assist someone else.
Yep.
I don't think that's wrong, right? I think that's it. Like a lot of folks are wounded healers in this space. Like they've been through some stuff. So it's like, well, okay, now I understand how to deal with this wound. The wound's not the problem. The wound is the data. Oh, okay, I got it now. Okay, I figure out how to deal with this when I was in a fatherless home or the teachers just shamed me out of who I was and my identity, right? I now understand how to deal with that. Hey, now I've named it. People have been talking about it for a long time, but now I've got a name for it. Now I can frame it because now I have a name for it. Oh, it's conscious gratitude. I'm not just thankful. I'm on my way to a transformation. I'm not going to see everything as a problem. I'm going to see it as a part of my process.
Mm. Wow. And this explains why mental health continues to be on the rise because people are not addressing their own mental health issues and they're in leadership positions, as we see in many ways, in many fields. So this is fantastic. So this book would be for that educator or a leader. It could be a student leader as well. Yes.
Yep. So essentially, what it is like I share with people, I work from the nursery all the way through the university. So it's at every level of where you are and where you sit. If you're working with, very small children in underserved communities, it will help you. If you're an educator who's in a classroom that's looking to redesign the learning environment, or if you're becoming a teacher, if you're preparing to be a teacher, this is definitely something to take a look at. Or if you're a veteran teacher or a leader that's looking to look at the culture and look at the climate on your campus and looking at ways of instructional quality, these are things that can help, you know, redesign how you're approaching teaching and learning within your institutional frame. If it's K-12 or higher ed, there's support. This book can help. Also, I think really the goal too is to reconnect the triangle between home, school, and community. So this book does lean in with parents, right? Parents are educators too. They really do understand their children a lot more than, the teachers and the administrators that support them, right? If you're at a college and you're dealing with, some nuances of, bridging the gaps between academic affairs and student services, you're trying to figure out what's the culture on campus, right? You never delegate final responsibility or the culture, right? We know that. So I know that, people love Peter Drucker and he says culture will eat strategy for breakfast, but I know that structure will eat stress for lunch. So if I have the right structure, it doesn't matter about the stress. So that's kind of how I feel like this book could really touch people in many ways in community organizations, after school programs. I mean, when you think about folks that are, college bridge programs and those kind of things, first gen students, I thought about all those things from the inside as I poured in 27 years of my own career into this work.
You said structure will help you eat stress. What was that
Oh,
statement?
structure will eat stress for lunch.
I love that. So
Oh,
cool. Okay, so now I love also in the book how you said as part of the framework is storytelling, pulling out your story. Because I think that is the connector. Because a lot of times people, ask, why are we so passionate about education? It's because we've lived these things, like you said, and we're able to tell our stories. So for our listeners, particularly our college student leaders, is there a framework in place where you give steps, like how to tell your story and how to connect it to a student?
absolutely.
Okay.
So basically, the book has an 8-step framework and it talks about how to, one, tell your story, but then two, everyone's situation is a little bit different. Like this book was written to follow the actual person reading it. It wasn't being written from another perspective. It's like, where are you? Right. It's kind of like what Toni Morrison would say, right? What can I do where I am? Right. Like, so if I'm in a certain space, what can I do? So I wrote that with those kind of concepts in mind. Like everyone's on a different step of their journey when they're talking about gratitude and being grateful and being thankful and respectful. So it's like, well, I don't want to assume where people are, but I do have an 8-step framework that people can follow. I also know that writing this text, everything is not lockstep, it's more cyclical. You might go to step 6 instead of step 2. The numbers for our benefit just to keep track of it, but it may not go in that 1 through 8 order. You might say, you know what, I might want to go right into, step 5, right? I may want to go right into the other part of the framework because I feel like I have a pretty good grip on where I am with, steps 1 through 6. So that's kind of where, I wrote the book with that in mind in terms of, having the framework, but the numbers are to the reader's benefit just to be able to keep track because we may not go in that specific order.
Right. Wow.
Mhm.
Powerful.
And
Well,
then that urgency, and then there's 3 pillars that kind of overarch with the urgency, identity, urgency, and direction, and you'll start to weave those in to the framework. Oh, this is identity formation, right? This is reaffirmation step where I'm reaffirming who I am. This is me shouldering disappointment. How do I shoulder disappointment? Oh, there's a step for that. Okay. Okay. What happens when I'm having a healthy disagreement? Am I going to be a victim? I know people talk about fear of missing out, right? FOMO and all that stuff. I talk a lot about FOPO, fear of other people's opinions. If people don't know your scars, you probably can't really take their opinion. So that's the other part. There's a step for that. Like, hey, how do I grapple with those kind of things?
so true.
So I hope it's more of a realistic approach. It's not kind of talking from the tower, it's talking from the inside out.
Hmm. Fantastic. And so when it comes to educators, you're starting with K through 12 or you're doing post-grad?
Yeah, so it's starting with K through 12 and teacher prep kind of simultaneously because it's like I want to inform their practice to reform their practice. So it definitely is in the K-12 space, but also in the higher ed community college space as well. So that's where I feel like it can go in many, many directions from a lot of the feedback that I was given, as we wrote the book. And, shout out to my academic mother, Gloria Boutti, who wrote a fantastic, beautiful forward for the book. Dr. Tyrone Howard with an endorsement. And, he's just a world-renowned professor at UCLA. And Sophie Long-Laturi, who was the California Teacher of the Year, I believe in 2022, is also given an endorsement. So it really does cut across the whole spectrum of a P20 system.
You got some major supports behind you. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So this has been great. Thank you so much for your time. So I'm thinking about final words of encouragement. We always wrap up. And I'm thinking about that student. As you know, we're serving that incoming college freshman and that outgoing, post-grad that's dealing with all of their anxiety in the workforce. But encouraging words for that student that's just on the path to a purpose-filled life. Because we hear purpose-filled all the time. Purpose, purpose, purpose. What does that mean to you? And what's some encouraging words?
I would always say to students and your listeners, your purpose was not lost. It's been living underneath the noise, the pressure, and the doubt. And the real work is getting quiet enough to hear it. And what I mean by that is sometimes I know you're carrying something heavy and nobody handed you a roadmap. So my offer to you is to be able to use this as that roadmap while you're carrying something pretty heavy. But you have to separate the signal and the noise because you're living in a time where there's so much information out there and a lot of it is a distraction. And the distraction will deter you from your destiny or your purpose. So you got to get quiet enough to really hear it and do the internal work and the reflective work of who you are in these specific moments. And it's okay not being okay because we all have to deal with that at some point.
It's okay not being okay. That's right. So good. So now if they wanted to learn more about you and learn about the book, where would you like to send them? To IG or website?
For me, I think LinkedIn is probably the best front door. My team is definitely working on some revamps for the website and YouTube pages, but I think the LinkedIn is probably the best snapshot of what I'm doing in the book. Clearly, there's an Amazon pre-ordered link that's available. If you want to order directly through the publisher, we have a code EME30, and you get a 30% discount directly from Emerald, our publisher.
Okay. Well, I wish you so much success. We need this book,
Thank you.
Immediately.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that.
With urgency. So thank you so much, Dr. Hill. I appreciate your time. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Stay well.
All right. We'll be talking soon. Thank you for joining us. So if your wound is the data, be sure to unpack the lesson that is waiting for you. For more information about other episodes, remember to subscribe to the Back to Me podcast, College and Beyond. I'm your host, Yoli Tamu. Leave a review at the end of this podcast, and if you would like to learn more about other special events, join our community on our YouTube channel at the Back to Me podcast, or simply text Back to Me to 833-206-4565. Until next time, be well.
Back to me.